After a promising win on Monday, Fenway Park turned back into a house of horrors for the Mariners on Tuesday and Wednesday. We'll tell you if these games merit some sort of response from Seattle's front office and more on today's episode of the Locked On Mariners podcast. Colby, hit it.
You are Locked On Mariners, your daily Seattle Mariners podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ahoy, sailors. It is Thursday, May 18th, 2023. This is Trident, Gonzales, and Colby for the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Subscribe, like, and turn on alerts if you're watching on YouTube, or subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your preferred podcast platform if you like what you hear. And if you're part of the crew and rock with us every single day, let us know in the comments below. And if you want to hear from us even more, please consider signing up for our Patreon by scanning the QR code that's right above my head. The link, as well as our social accounts, is also in the description of this episode. And on this episode, we'll discuss whether or not the disaster of the last 2 days for the Mariners merits any sort of action from the Mariners front office, as in roster moves. Should they make any? If so, who? That's coming up a little later on. But first, Colby, I'll just start by asking you this. What in the world happened last night?
I mean, Marco was terrible in kind of the one ballpark he can't be terrible against a team that really isn't a good matchup for him anyways, in a ballpark that really isn't a good matchup for him. I mean, Marco's a fly ball pitcher in a ballpark where fly balls usually turn into doubles and home runs. So, yeah, it went about as well as you might expect when Marco doesn't have his good command and he doesn't have his best changeup, and he's facing that lineup in that ballpark. Like, yeah, that was always a possibility. Fortunately, look, it's tough to say like the bullpen kept you in it when you're down 8-0, 9-0. But they went 7 2/3, gave up three or four. So yeah, it's just one of those games. Jerry's talked about this openly that like, yeah, you know what? Marco's going to have some duds. Like, it's going to happen. He's going to get hit around a few times. And unfortunately, last night was one of those. And also, unfortunately, it happened to be in the rubber match of your series. So yeah, I don't think it's much more than Marco wasn't good last night. And that's that. I mean, look, obviously you only scored 3 runs in Fenway. That's not great. Didn't even generate a ton of traffic, but remember, you were the weather last night in Boston was terrible. The wind was blowing straight in from right field. It was cold. And as a result of that, Taylor Trammell gets robbed of a 3-run home run pretty early. And all of a sudden you put that on the board and you're looking at, they scored 6 runs. Stuff happens. So yeah, it was bad. There's no doubt about it. It was one of Marco's duds, and it's going to take him a long time to chip away at that. But, it's part of baseball. It's part of the game. Every single team in the league will lose a game like that last night. And the Mariners, unfortunately, kind of feels like they did it back-to-back nights, but it is what it is. Like, it's a bummer. It's annoying. Thankfully, you have a really well-timed off day today. So the bullpen shouldn't be any issues after they had to carry last night's performance. And you are going to go, with Gilbert, Miller, and Kirby against Atlanta. They should give you some depth or some distance in their starts. So yeah, overall, just really bad Marco last night, and it's ugly to watch when he's like that. And he pretty much kills any chance you have of winning that game. But it happens, man. It happens to every team throughout the year. And it's not just Marco who will have these bad blow up starts. And yeah, sounds like a cop out. Maybe it is, but it's baseball. You're going to get you're going to get your teeth caved in on the occasional night, just like Boston did in game 1. So it's a bummer, but it is the reality of the situation. And now you have a much needed off day before you start a 3-game set against probably the best team in the National League, maybe in all of baseball. So again, not ideal that you're going in there with a 2-game losing streak, because it's not hard to imagine this turning into a 5-game losing streak. But you got game 1. You're going to have you're going to throw probably the three arms you trust the most right now against the best team in the National League, and you see what your offense can do. It's been a little bit better over the last 2 weeks or so. So actually a lot better over the last 2 weeks. And you just kind of go from there. You have to flush it. You have to move past it. And, if there's anything that Mariner fans should be familiar with, it's how dumb run differential is and how misleading it is. So back-to-back bad games took a bite out of their run differential. Who cares? It's 2 losses, whether you lose 4-3 or 12-3. Like, it's the same thing.
Right. Fun differential, on the other hand, though, not as high
Took
as you would like
a
it to be.
big hit last night.
Yeah, it took a pretty big hit. I was pretty surprised that we didn't see a position player pitch in this game for the Mariners. But yeah.
I mean, like, who are you willing to risk losing by throwing out there to pitch?
True. The good thing on the Brave series, and we'll talk more about the Brave series on tomorrow's show, but you're gonna miss Spencer Strider, so that's great news. Oh darn, I really wish that we could have seen Spencer Strider pitch. Dang. Oh well, guess I'll just have to settle for watching him against another team that's not my favorite baseball team. Darn.
It's just shucks. Julio would have gone 4 for 4 with 4 bombs off of that slider. There's just no question about it, really.
Before we move on, I want to ask you about Kolten Wong, because you haven't been here the last couple of days, or for the last couple of post-game shows, rather. So Wong obviously had a rough night on Tuesday. Just what's your general feel on him right now, and what happened on Tuesday?
So yeah, Tuesday was a rough night, mostly defensively. So yeah, and that's really been the bigger issue here, is that Wong for the first half of April was terrible. Second half of April, pretty darn good. Then he gets hurt, obviously jams his wrist on, what was that, May 6th, I think.
Yeah.
And he's pretty bad at the plate since then. It's pretty easy to draw a correlation there. Although he did have a nice double in Fenway and a couple of hard hit balls in each of his last few games. So overall, I feel like the bat is probably going to get there at some point. But defensively, yeah, it's been pretty rough. We saw him have the down year last year, and this year hasn't looked a ton better. It's mostly it's not even really range, really. It's just mental mistakes. It's dropping, it's dropping balls essentially, which is a lot worse than just having less range, because that you can kind of cover up. But if you can't catch, like, that's kind of half your job. So yeah, Wong's in a rough place right now. Jerry DePoto already came out this morning and said that they're going to use Caballero a little more against righties. So to me, that kind of points to the Mariners not thinking that Wong is going to get back defensively to where he was, or anywhere near where he was, because that's pretty pointed statement coming from the general manager to the public. But what I do think we might see, though, is Kolten Wong DH a little bit more, because again, it's not great, but what Wong has done for the last 3 weeks or so, give or take, at the plate, probably should warrant him staying in the lineup somehow. And if it's not going to be at second base because you want to play Caballero, the DH spot is available, and it doesn't have to be every single day. It could be 2, 3, 4 times a week, kind of play matchups there. But yeah, Wong, I do think the bat's going to get there eventually, and I still think that he's going to have a role on this team. I just think that rather than it being the 500 plate appearance second baseman, it's going to be more of a strict platoon, and it's not going to be just based on handedness. It's going to be based on matchup and stuff like that. So we'll see how it plays out. But at this point, I feel bad for Kolten Wong, just because it just feels like it's snowballing on top of him right now, and he's so excited to get back to the West Coast and to play for Seattle. It's just a bummer, but the club's got to do what the club's got to do. And right now, Caballero is easily the best second baseman defensively on this roster, and probably the best bat for now. But again, I would caution people, if Jose Caballero is the starting second baseman for the remainder of this year, your ball club's probably not that good.
Right. Unless he continues to hit, which, I mean, he's doing that right now. Even last night had couple hits, one hit, something like that. But
one hit, I think a walk. Like,
Yeah, he keeps on doing stuff every time he gets put in the game. So
right. But again, just keep in
how
mind,
long
he's
does
been here.
yeah
Yeah, he's been here for 5 minutes in
yeah
the grand scheme of
and
things.
how long does that continue? I mean, he's obviously been a
It
minor league performer, but he also wasn't able to crack the major leagues until 27 years old. So
right. He has a lot of Sam Haggerty qualities in him.
sure,
And what did we see last year from Haggerty? Looked like a legitimate starting player for about a month. League started to get a book on him. He started to play over every day, got overexposed, and now Eh, so
right,
we'll see. Like I like Cabby a lot though, so he kind of I think has the exact attitude you want on this team right now. He's got a little bit of fire to him, and obviously he does a lot of things well. He works counts really well.
okay.
He runs the bases really well. Can play up the middle really well. So he's a good player. Good player.
Yeah,
Good useful player. I just don't think you should be counting on him to play every day unless you're counting on your ball club to be 500 or
yeah.
worse.
Caballero is a little bit of a what disturber, and I
Yeah.
like it. I like it.
Like stir that pot a little bit.
Yeah. Loves to poke the bear just a little, just a smidge.
Just a
All
little
right,
bit.
so I want to talk about what the front office may or may not do in response to these games, or not even really in response to these games, but so overall, are there some changes here in order for this team, and what could they be? We'll go over that in just a moment. But real quick, a reminder: this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to you by So Rare. Our new sponsor, So Rare, is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. And unlike other fantasy baseball platforms, So Rare managers truly own their fantasy experience, collecting, buying, selling, and competing with player cards against global opponents to win epic rewards. Win or lose, you still own your cards, and there's no cost to play. Plus, the more you win, the more you advance, collecting increasingly powerful cards and accessing next level competitions and rewards. So Rare MLB game weeks happen twice weekly and span a 3 to 4 day cycle. And at the end of game week, So Rare MLB managers who rank at or near the top of their leaderboards win a variety of rewards, which can include So Rare scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, and VIP experiences like meeting MLB stars. Prizes may vary depending on the competition. Head to sorare.com/locked-on. That's spelled SORARE.com to draft your team of free player cards, set your lineup, and start competing today to win epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/locked-on to start playing today. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. And if you're unable to watch the Mariners and the Braves this weekend, you can catch all the action on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So, Colby, the response I've seen from Mariners fans, or rather people who cover the team after these last two losses, has been something needs to be done. Front office needs to do something here. There needs to be some sort of change put in place because this was embarrassing the last two nights, which, hey, it sucked. It was bad. But also, you've won a lot of games lately as well. So it's not, this feels like more of a bump in the road rather than an indication of anything really else. But do you agree with the sentiment that there needs to be changes made roster wise, particularly on the back end of the roster? Or do you think things should just stay how they are right now?
So here's my thing with this conversation. Be specific. If you want to pitch a change, you need to come with names and specifics. You
Right.
can't, well, they have to do something. I don't know what, but they have to do something. No, that's not good enough because you're calling for, and this is a good, I see this a lot. You're calling for people's jobs. You're calling for people to be DFA'd. You're calling for people to be sent back to the minors. And like, this is serious stuff. So if you can't come with like a real suggestion, just don't make one. That being said, yeah, there are some small tweaks that they can make, and it's not going to be what people want to hear, though, because I'm not going to sit here and tell you to call up Bryan Woo for Marco Gonzales. I'm not going to tell you to DFA Marco Gonzales. I'm not going to tell you to, call up Emerson Hancock. The issue with those two guys in particular, Woo and Hancock, by the way, Bryan Woo had another amazing outing last night. Certainly looks like a major league pitcher right now. The issue is that Bryan Woo coming into this year, I think had 55 professional innings. He is definitely on some kind of innings count, and you want to be able to control that. You can't really do that at the major league level. You want him to get innings, and you want You want to be able to skip them when you need to skip them. You want to be able to short script them when you want to short script them. It's not going to happen. You might be able to get a little away with it with Hancock a little bit more. But again, Hancock only had like 90 innings last year. It's not the same as Bryce Miller. Bryce Miller had almost 140, and you're much more likely to be able to ask him to go 160, 170 than you are of Woo and Hancock. So I don't think it's that. I don't think it's as big as people want. Those are kind of the two biggest
and
moves you can make.
real quick on that too, right? This goes back to the conversation that we had about the Flexin and Marco battle in camp. Who fits better in the bullpen? Not Marco Gonzales. Jerry
Right.
DiPoto himself on this show said Marco's stuff doesn't play up in the bullpen. So you're saying bye to Marco if you're making any move that involves Marco. Marco's getting released outright.
Yeah.
And at
Right.
that point, you have to make sure that you have a succession plan in place that not only benefits you right now, but gets you to the finish line.
Right. Exactly. And the other thing to keep in mind here is that even though it might be better for the team to have somebody like Bryan Woo pitch for Marco Gonzales, is it better for Bryan Woo? You have to consider the player you're calling up here, because if you think Bryan Woo has the shot to be part of your long-term future, and the Mariners do, or you think that Bryan Woo can help you get a piece that could be a part of your long-term future, great. You have to be smart about how you handle that asset, because if he comes up to the big leagues and he struggles, he loses value. If he comes up to the big leagues and gets hurt, he loses value. So I think, you have to, it's not only what's best for your team, it's what's best for the individual player, particularly a young player who is, still a developmental arm at the end of the day. He hasn't thrown a ton of innings. So I think, Marco, the only way you make it work is if you go to a 6-man rotation, which just means giving the ball to Kirby and Gilbert less, which, and Luis, who will get it figured out. Stop doom scrolling about Luis Castillo. He'll be fine. It's not ideal. So I don't think that's the move here. In terms of is there anything they could do on the back end? Sure, they've kind of already done that. They kind of made this shift. Caballero is going to play more against righties. He's going to be essentially the starting second baseman, which to me means Wong is going to DH more, and he'll also play a little bit of second. So that's a small tweak that they've made. We talked about Haggerty. I think he should be sent down. I would say Mason McCoy is the call up for me, but obviously there's Moran and Mike Ford is a possibility. I don't think Cade Marlowe is your guy in this spot. So I think you could do that. And then I think you could maybe swap out one of your bullpen arms for Prolander Baroa, who was, again, excellent last night. But there's still some things that the Mariners want Baroa to do in the minors before they call him up. They want him to pitch back-to-back nights, and they want him to pitch more than twice a week. Right. So the next step for him is pitched yesterday, probably gets the day off, and then you want to see him go Saturday, Sunday, and then get a day off, and then go Tuesday. Right. So that way he just kind of has this feel for how it works. And so those are things that they want him to do. So they might not think he's ready yet, but when they do, then I think that's the move you make for Flexin. So there are some things you can do in the back end, but as far as call up one of your top 4 prospects, that's not happening. Harry Ford is not seeing Seattle this year. Just shut up. Stop asking that question. It's not happening. Cole Young is not seeing Seattle this year. Yeah. Tyler Locklear is not seeing Seattle this year. Woo and Hancock might, but it's not going to be for Marco in May. I'll tell you that much. At least not until the end not from May to October. It's not going to work like that. So, and as for trades, sure, go find me one. Go find me a team on May 18th that is already willing to tell their fans they're out of this race and they have a player who is better than what you have right now, that they are willing to trade you at market price, not above market price. Go find me that player, and then we can talk. Right. I'm not going to wait for you because the guy really doesn't exist right now. So.
Yeah. On the bullpen front, aside from Baroa, I would like to see Riley O'Brien maybe get a shot at some point here. Maybe Isaiah Campbell, he's back, and he's been pretty good since he got back. The other thing, though, on the Flexin front that we do have to keep in mind here is that, and Jason A. Churchill brought this up on his Slack. I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this, but he theorized that Flexin might be around because Taylor Dollard's hurt right now as well, and that's someone that I mean, that's starting pitching depth. That's a guy that you would think is major league ready that could fill essentially the role that Flexin is right now and give you essentially what Flexin is giving you right now. So maybe
Right.
once Dollard gets healthy again, and we'll see on whenever that happens, maybe that's when they finally pull the plug on Flexin and move on. But for now, it seems like Flexin's kind of locked into that spot, for
Yeah, to
better or
me
worse. Yeah.
that like the Chris Flexen insurance for me is already Tommy Malone. So
Yeah,
um,
that is to me. Darren McCacken as
yeah, like
well. Like,
fine, whatever. Like if you're throwing Chris Flexen, you're already saying you're willing to lose that game. So what's the difference of throwing Darren McCacken in there?
well, and look at how Flexen is being deployed right now. Last night he threw 3 innings in a 12-3 game.
Yep.
Great. Whoop-de-doo. Now he's not he can be used for the next couple days at the very least. I
just
mean, like I get it's like you like someone has to, do mop up duty. You have to throw those innings, but do I really need to use a roster spot on that guy? Do I need a mop up
no.
specialist? No, I
I
don't.
mean, you have one on your roster right now. His name's Matt Brash. Anyways, um,
Well,
no, but
that's the other thing too, right? Like if you do think, and I don't think the Mariners agree with this, but if you do think that Brash needs time in Tacoma, which I believe, I said that a couple days ago on the show, I still believe that a few days later now. Yeah, Riley O'Brien, Isaiah Campbell, doesn't really matter. Stephen Kolek, for that matter. I know that he just
yeah.
recently got called up to Tacoma, but why not?
Mhm.
Like, take a shot on one of those guys because I mean you're going to
Right.
get Baroa up anyway. So, and if Baroa is ultimately going to take that Brash spot, let's but like you don't think that he's ready, let's speed up the the Brash rehabilitation, if you will. Put him down in Tacoma and bring up someone like someone that's kind of interesting and take a little shot on someone like Stephen Kolek or someone like that in the
Yeah.
meantime until Baroa is ready.
Right, and Kolek is the mop up guy in that spot. He's a former starter, wasn't up until this winter. He's gone multiple innings in most of his outings this year. He is that guy.
Yeah.
Side note, also though on Flexin, I saw somebody speculate that if the Mariners wait until June 1 to DFA Flexin, essentially he would have to accept his assignment to AAA or forfeit his salary. His remaining salary. So if the Mariners wait until June 1 and they DFA Flexin, he clears waivers, which he would. If he doesn't, that's fine too, because then you just dump his contract on whoever claims him. If they do that and Flexin says, I don't want to go to Tacoma, I want my release, that's fine. But then the Mariners would save $4 million. That's how this person interpreted the roster rules. I don't know for sure. That's not really my arena, but there could be something in play like that where Seattle is trying to get to a certain date before they deploy, a DFA maneuver essentially. And it's kind of like, Luis, it's kind of like Diego Castillo, where it's like, we could technically option him down. And if
Right.
he declines the option, then we don't have to pay him. So it could just be something like that where they're waiting for a specific date to do it, so that way they can keep Flexin in the organization or save the money that they owe him. It's a win-win at that stage. We'll see if
Flexen's
that's true or
contract
not.
is incredibly convoluted, so I'm not going to
It
dive
is.
into that further.
And
I mean, we
that's
spent
why I'm not.
this whole offseason debating if he had 4 years or 1 year left of club control, like the
It's
entire
one.
offseason. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
one at the end of the day, but like for a while there,
It's a really complicated deal. Yeah. So we don't.
yeah,
Maybe there's a clause in there that protects him from that even. So we don't know. We
yeah,
don't know about Flexin. We're just guessing.
right. All right, so it's been a rough last couple days for this rotation. Obviously, rough night for Luis Castillo on Tuesday. I said that to me was his worst start in a Mariners uniform. Marco obviously had the occasional Marco blow up as we've
Hold my
come
adult beverage,
as
says Marco
we've
Gonzales.
yeah. Adult beverage, I like it. Very Dave Simsian of you. I want to talk about how we rank these 5 current starters in the Mariners rotation in just a moment, but real quick, a reminder: this episode of Locked On Mariners is brought to us by a new sponsor, Bird Dogs. Look, I hate shopping for summer clothes. I just want to be comfortable, no matter if I'm at the ballpark or back at home recording an episode of Locked On M's. Is that too much to ask? Oftentimes, though, I find myself settling for clothes that feel cheap, tight, and restricting and make me sweat in all the wrong places. Gross, I know, but let's stop pretending it doesn't happen to most of us. Thankfully, Bird Dogs has me, and therefore you, covered. Their wide selection of insanely comfortable shorts, joggers, sweatpants, polos, and more have me ready for any occasion this summer throws my way. I mean, who doesn't love stretchy fabric and built-in underwear? It's time to look good, feel good, and play good this summer. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. And when you enter promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in this free Bird Dogs Yeti style tumbler with every order. Because what's even more important than staying comfortable this summer? Staying hydrated. And you can do both with Bird Dogs. Again, that's birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. And you're listening to the Locked On Mariners podcast. Thank you again for making us your first listen. What did you think? This is first time hearing it. I had to write that whole thing.
Sure. You'd be a better copywriter than others. I'd say that.
There we go.
That's as far,
I'll take it.
That's as far as I think I legally can go in this situation.
I'll take it. By the way, folks, again, if you can't catch the Mariners and Braves on TV this weekend, you can catch them on the Mariners hometown broadcast with SiriusXM via the SXM app. So right now, Mariners rotation still second most valuable in baseball, according to F4. Took a little bit of a hit this week, though, with the bad starts from Castillo and Marco, for sure. Yeah. They wwere first, but the Twins have surpassed them on that front.
It took a hit like the Titanic took a hit from an iceberg. Sure.
Wow. Too soon.
It's like 108 years ago.
Too soon. Yes. So even with that, right? Even with the small hit, the small little hiccup, I still feel great about this rotation. But let's talk about these 5 guys individually. Let's rank them. Colby, how would you rank based off of, I mean, it doesn't really matter what it's based off of. It could be based off of just feel and vibes. It could be based off of just how much you trust these guys or just the upside / floor of them. How would you rank these 5 guys in the Mariners rotation right now?
I don't know. Last time I did this exercise, some lunatic kept calling me a liar for saying that I still trust Robbie Ray, which.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Right. I remember that. That's a good throwback.
Yeah. Which, liar for an opinion? That doesn't seem.
Stop lying,
like
Colby.
the right word, but whatever.
You're lying right now.
Sure. I am lying by saying that guy had a good point. So I think I don't know how you want to like rank these guys, but to me, Kirby's number 1. And then I'm still going with Castillo. Like, I know he hasn't been good. Like, there's really no debating that. And this was kind of like the inevitable blow up that we all should have seen coming, because it's kind of been like, he's okay. He was okay. Not his best outing. And then all of a sudden, boom, like his worst. And you're like, okay, well, it's a logical progression. But the stuff is so good. The track record is so good. This isn't unusual for Castillo to have a 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 game stretch where he's just really struggling. He's done it before, and he's gone on to produce still great seasons in Cincinnati. I feel pretty good about Seattle figuring this out. And then probably Gilbert 3, Miller 4, and then Marco 5, I think is probably the correct way to order these guys. I think if you're putting Miller ahead of Gilbert or Castillo, I think you're a little crazy. Like, I'm really impressed with what Miller's done. Don't get me wrong, but again, in the grand scheme of things, he's been here for 5 minutes. And he's faced Oakland. Yeah. He's faced Oakland and Detroit in 2 of his 3 starts.
And a Houston lineup that is incredibly talented. Still has Yordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, but also not at 100%. Far from it.
No. So. And again, I'm not trying to like degrade what he's done, because he's been incredible.
Oh, he's literally like been off to a historic start. Yeah.
But again, you're asking me like who I trust. Like, how would I like configure these guys in a playoff series? In a 5-game series right now, my 3 starters are Kirby, Castillo, and Gilbert, and I'm putting Miller in the bullpen. Like, that's how. Now, ask me again in August, and this might change. But again, in the grand scheme of things, Miller's been here for 5 minutes, and he's faced 2 glorified AAA lineups. Like, we'll see how he does in Atlanta. I'm certainly really interested to see how he attacks that. And Miller's in a great spot right now with his mechanics, and he's throwing a ton of strikes, and the slider and the curveball are curveball. Both look amazing in his last start. So he's already shown that he can adjust off of being fastball heavy, and like it's all great. Cool. Do I want to trust the guy who has 3 starts, or do I want to trust the guy that's coming up on like 75 quality starts, or do I want to trust the guy who has like 110 really good quality starts? It's kind of a no-brainer. So Miller for me is 4, and I think, as Ty's about to do, putting Miller any higher than 4 is kind of a joke.
I'm not actually. I'm
Mm.
not. If
See,
he does this
that's a
against
lie.
Atlanta, if he does this against
That's a
Atlanta,
lie.
if he does this against Atlanta, yeah, I'm lying. If he does this against Atlanta, maybe this changes. But right now, I'm in agreement with you. I'm going Kirby, I'm going Castillo, I'm going Gilbert, I'm going Miller, and then I'm going Marco. Now, there is a pretty steep cliff from Miller to Marco
Yeah.
in my mind. So,
Sure.
take that for what you will. I feel like Miller is pretty close to Gilbert just in terms of like upside. But again, we haven't seen it against like we've seen it once against a pretty good lineup, but one that's not at full strength. And then
Sure.
again, 2 like borderline AAA lineups, like you said.
I mean,
If he does this against Atlanta, which to me might be the best offense in baseball, best lineup in
sure.
baseball,
Yeah.
then especially one that is a really bad matchup for him in particular.
Yeah. Sure. If he goes 6 shutout innings against Atlanta, then the gap between him and Gilbert is closed a little, but like
I'm my eyebrows a little raised.
no.
My eyebrows a little raised. I'm just saying.
By the way, guys, from a purely like tactical standpoint in terms of like team building, you really don't want Bryce Miller to win Rookie of the Year this year. Just throwing that out there. Because not only do you not get the draft pick, Bryce Miller gets a full year of service time, which he would have earned. I don't really have an issue with that, but still, wouldn't you rather have Bryce Miller for all of this year and then 6 more seasons than just all of this year and 5 more seasons?
Wow.
Just throwing that out there.
Player suppressor, Colby Patnode.
Yeah, when it's to my benefit.
Anti-player, pro-establishment, pro-organization, pro-owner, Colby Patnode.
Well, I don't, a little too far pro-owner, but
how do those boots taste?
Really, you would rather Bryce Miller win an award that means nothing in the long run than have him for an additional year? I'm thinking about Mariner fans in 2029. Ty's over here like, who cares? Give him that ugly plaque so that he can leave here in 2028. Like, come on. By the way,
it's pretty hard for pitchers to win Rookie of the Year though. So
have you seen what the other American League rookies are doing?
That is true. I mean, Josh Young's been pretty good.
Sure. Is he rookie eligible still? I thought he got enough at bats.
Yeah. He's eligible. No, he's eligible.
Right. Well, still, if Miller does what he does, Young could hit 40 home runs.
Spencer Strider did what he did last year, and he didn't win. Michael Harris won. Now, I'm not saying that there's necessarily a Michael Harris in this American League class. There isn't.
Gunnar Henderson, Anthony Volpe, like it's not been a good year for rookies in the American League. Yeah. But we'll see. Like I said, like, look, if he wins it, fine, whatever. But it's not good. It's good for him. It's not good for the Mariners. And the other side note here, just as we wrap up, can Major League Baseball please fix the awards they give out? They literally look like they get them at the trophy store for $9.99. It's just like a slab of wood with like a cheap plastic like inscription on it. It's like, come on, guys. Like,
by the way,
Rookie of the Year award looks like a joke.
Yeah.
Like, how dare you disrespect the name of Jackie Robinson by putting his name on your cheap plastic award? Like, come on, man. Get something metal, get something nice, get something gold. Like, let's do this thing. But no, you can just continue to be cheap so you can get a piece of plywood and glue some Jackie Robinson Rookie of the Year, Julio Rodriguez on.
Well,
like, that is firewood.
It's either that or a hunk of metal. Your choice.
At least it's metal. I'm just saying, I got better looking awards in high school than what Major League Baseball gives its Rookie of the Year awards. Go look it up, guys. Seriously. It's hideous.
My YMCA participation trophies are better than that.
Well, those are the only trophies you had since, you were homeschooled and sheltered your entire life.
By the way, I don't mean to jinx it here, but first recording and we're at the end. We did it. we were actually able to do this in one take. So look at us go. Look at us doing stuff. And I'm not going to risk it any further. We're going to sign out here. So thank you so much for joining us here on the Locked On Mariners podcast. For Colby Patnode, I'm Trident Gonzales. Be sure to give us a follow on Twitter at LO_Mariners. You can follow me at Dane Gonzales, that's DaneGNZLZ, and Colby at CPAT11, that's CPAT11. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok as at Locked On Mariners as well. That's one word, Locked On Mariners. You can also find all that stuff in the description of this episode. Again, you can catch the Mariners and the Braves on SiriusXM with the SXM app this weekend. Thank you again for making us your first listen, and we'll see you tomorrow. Peace.